So while my daughter is hearing this news that, oh my God, I could have gone fishing with my father and it's my mother that's stopping me from going, she gets off the phone and she's like raging mad at me. And it's like, I got a lot on my plate, and, I don't care for this visit. He can visit with his children. That's what I'm kind of pushing for, is that he visit with his children and interact with his children more often. It's kind of the reason I was leaving him. And so when I heard that he said that there was no visit, and that it was fishing, it was like, one way or another, you're going fishing with your father. So it took maybe a total of 3 or 4 minutes to hear what my daughter's story was and pick up the phone and say, you know what, I'll drop her off at your place if you guys are going fishing. Well, the guy's already left. And when he went to go fishing, he drove approximately 2 blocks from my house to go to where he was going. He could have very easily picked her up, but he needed to cause this little incident. Another example that went fairly extreme is, and there's legal evidence of this one. Um, Eventually, over time, my girls were screaming bloody murder. Kids fight, and lots of stress in the house, and I had, the crisis line on speed dial. Nowhere to lie. I'm sure if there's records, you'll see it. Speed dial. I tried to get as much help as possible for every single thing I could do. But anyways, my girls were screaming bloody murder in a townhouse that I didn't want to get evicted from. So I told them that they were grounded in the basement where all their toys were. And but unfortunately, this was 10 minutes before they went to visit with their father. Wonder why they were fighting and upset and stressed. Um, but anyways, he took them, and I was naturally the enemy because I had grounded them. They were still being grounded when they went to go and visit their father. Well, he used that anger and took them all into a walk-in counseling clinic. The kids raged out on how the enemy, looks like. And the story goes that apparently I lock my children in basement for days without food and water. That's the story that was put in his affidavit that he was presenting in front of a judge. My kids no longer trust counseling because, they kind of calmed down. They kind of seen that it was 10 minutes. All your toys were there. No door was locked. You know, you could have had food and water at any time. All you had to do was say you're hungry, and I would have brought you down food. But it was 10 friggin' minutes, and you were up in your room not eating. So, um, the story got twisted, and he's possibly really truly believing in that. And years later, if my kids hear this story, they're like, well, Mom, that kind of sounds kind of familiar. They kind of remember that happening. And, from a perspective that I actually locked them in a basement for days without food and water. They, now that they're older, they can't comprehend that somebody just told you a story and was in front of a counselor who told them that I was the worst mother they've ever heard, that they should not listen to their mother, they should stay away from their mother as much as possible. So, you try teaching your kids right from wrong when you've got basically four teenagers telling you you're as dumb as rocks and you know nothing and you're the problem, and um, you cannot discipline because you're wrong. So I am very proud of my children. I think they do know the difference between right and wrong. I think they're very, very loving people. They've definitely got their version of events totally different than mine. None of them want or have any interest in understanding my perspective. They keep forcing their perspective on me, and they always assume that they know what's best for me. And I obviously don't know shit, and I'm on a welfare system, and it's like, no, there is a cause to why I'm here, and nobody wants to listen to what that cause was and what that battle was, because I don't think anybody could really keep their sanity through that kind of hell, which is the driving force behind what I'm doing. It's basically, well, you didn't want to listen to me in person. You're kind of forcing me to have this will to make a documentary that hopefully my kids will listen to my perspective. But if they don't, I understand they have a completely different perspective. I understand it's just as real for them as it is for me. The only thing is, I have one too. And at the end of the day, I think everything that happens in our experiences happens because it motivates you to do something with it. And how you choose to do something with it is your life purpose. So there are no rights and wrongs. Um, if I'm wrong in sharing this information with you and sharing my story, then I'm wrong. But you know what? You've been wrong, and a lot of people have been wrong. And so this is my turn to be wrong, and I'm allowed to be wrong, and I'm allowed to be heard because nobody really wants to listen to me. So, please forgive me for anybody that does get pissed off, but it is my story. And part of the thing that's been running in my head is, you know what, if somebody was writing a book, would you actually treat me and say to me the things that you're saying? Would you actually make that court ruling if you knew somebody was going to write a book about your rulings? At the end of the day, for mostly nine years, I've been paying child support while the children live with me. So it's a little bit more hell that not only can you not afford to feed your kids on minimum wage while you're dealing with this level of abuse, you cannot focus in a programming career. I mean, I graduated with an 89%, but there's no way you can do that demanding career while you're dealing with the amount of abuse that was going on for 9 years solid. And our justice system, when I lost my mind, I found out that I had to pay advanced child support. My daughter was 16-ish. I had to pay him in advance child support, and the child lives with me. That's been the 9 year experience. Some of the child has lived with me, and some, the courts believe my children live with their father. There's a good explanation to why the courts believe that. A great deal is because they're not receiving information. And if you live in poverty or you can't afford the same equal dollar value for your opposition, well, the opposition wins. If you're not as dirty as the opposition, well, the opposition wins. So if you go into our court system thinking it's fair, it's not fair. Um, Justice means that you examine a problem from all angles. All angles means you receive every piece of information, and you can only judge it from a perspective that isn't based on your suggestive beliefs. Meaning, if you're rich, you'd kind of think that, well, everybody lives the way I do. Everybody's having food. You tend to not attach yourself to what it's like for children not to eat. So when you make your decisions, you think that these people go home and they're fine. Everything works out. And it's like, no, pussycat. You're looking through eyes that are wealthy. And I think if we changed, I mean, just visualize this. If we change the system to everybody that's on welfare kind of takes a legal course and takes what it does to be a lawyer, and you let people in poverty make the decisions in a court system, and you'll see a completely different picture. All of a sudden, different evidence will be acceptable. All of a sudden, other evidence won't be acceptable. So our justice system very much is based by the judger. And also, from my perspective, judges are the only ones that don't have to follow the laws. I mean, if you see law, you have to act on that. When a judge actually sees a crime, he doesn't act on it until a lawyer tells him to do something with it. So he's the guy that's sitting there doing nothing because he thinks he's not going to make a judgment. When, you know, he should be judging, he ain't. And when he's supposed to, he doesn't.